Hi guys, today we'll be talking about le passé composé, which is one of the many ways the French language has to express the past tense. Now before I go into the actual mechanics of how the passé composé works, I'd just like to tell you guys what exactly it means because you want to know what you're doing before we actually start. So here's an example of what it looks like. J'ai parlé, I spoke. And we can translate this into in three different ways, those being I spoke, I had spoken, and I did speak. So now that we know what we're doing, I think we can begin. So, as you can see here, the passé composé really has two parts, an auxiliary verb and past participle. So that's an auxiliary verb and a past participle. Now this auxiliary verb tends to be either avoir or être. Avoir is by far the most common one used because être is only for some special verbs and in special cases. Right, so today we'll be going over avoir because it's the more common one and actually the easier one. Okay, so before we actually begin the passé composé proper, I'd like to review how to conjugate avoir because we're going to be using it a lot today. Okay, so we have j'ai, I have, tu as, you have, il a, he has, or elle a, she has, and then nous avons, we have, vous avez, you have, and ils ont, or elles ont, they have. Alright, so now that we've gone over the auxiliary verb, we can do the past participle. So in French, the past participle is called le participe passé. 1 second as I write that out. Le participe passé. And for regular verbs, there are three different ways of determining what this actually is, based on the three major classes of verbs. Oh, that line ended up a little long. Okay. So we have ER verbs, IR verbs, and RE verbs. And those are the endings of the infinitives. So let's do an ER verb first. Why not parler? Okay, so what we do to find the participe passé is we drop the infinitive ER ending. So we're just left with PARL. And what we do is we add to this an E with an accent aigu, and we get parler. So that's the participe passé for the verb parler, parler. Okay, so for IR verbs, let's go with choisir, to choose. So for IR verbs, it's really simple. You just drop the ending R, and then you get choisi. For RE ending verbs, let's go with vendre. So all you do is you drop the infinitive ending like you did for ER, but this time instead of adding an E, we add a U. So we get vendu. So these rules are pretty good. You can find the participe passé for a whole ton of verbs based on their endings. Okay, so now that we know how to conjugate the auxiliary verb and how to find the past participle, all we need to do is put them together. And that's really easy. You literally just string them one after another. So right here you can see that we have j'ai, which is the present tense conjugation of the auxiliary verb avoir, and to that we've literally just added parler, which is the participe passé as we just found out. So let's do another example putting things together. Let's do choisir. Okay, so we can say j'ai choisi, I chose, tu as choisi, you chose, il a choisi, he chose, elle a choisi, same thing, she chose, nous avons choisi, we chose, vous avez choisi, you or you all chose, and then ils ont choisi, they chose. And then if we wanted to say elles ont choisi, it's the same thing. Okay, so the nice thing about the avoir passé composé is that the participe passé doesn't change based on gender or number. And I mean, that happens in a lot of other French constructions, like when we have to worry about adjectives changing based on the gender of the noun and the number of the noun. Here, the participe passé stays the same. That's not true with être, but today we're just focusing on avoir, so we don't need to worry about that yet. Okay, so now we know how to use the passé composé to find the past tense of regular verbs. But now what happens if we've got irregular verbs? Well, irregular verbs, as we all know, are the bane of French students' existence, but unfortunately, they are unavoidable. So, irregular verbs. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so there's quite a few of these, and for whatever reason, French likes to have irregular verbs be the more common verbs. So that's like avoir, être, faire, prendre, mettre, boire, voir, savoir, dire, lire, écrire, pouvoir, and vouloir. There's a bunch more, and I'll put them in the description, but we'll go over some of these now. Okay, so the participe passé for avoir is and that's eu. So we'll use it in a sentence. J'ai un livre. I had a book. So that would be j'ai Okay, let's do être, and that's été. So I could say elle a été chez sa sœur. She was at her sister's house. Prendre is pris. Il a pris son vélo. He took his bike. Voir is vu. Nous avons vu des oiseaux. We saw birds. And then dire is dit. Ils ont dit qu'ils vont être chez eux. They said that they would be at their house. Okay, so these are just a few. I'll go over, well, I'll post more irregular verbs in the description. Okay, so I have one more thing to go over before we end, and that is how to negate verbs in the passé composé. Negation. Okay, so let's go over some of the examples I just gave. Alright. Ils ont dit qu'ils vont être chez eux. They said they would be at their house. Now, what if they hadn't? What do we do? Okay, so the real question here is where the ne and the pas go, because we've got these two parts. So does it go around both of them or around just one of them? The answer to that is around just one, and that is just around the auxiliary. So if we were to negate this sentence, we would say ils n'ont pas dit qu'ils vont être chez eux. They did not say that they would be at their house. So that's basically it. You stick the ne and the pas around the avoir, and voila, you have a negative sentence. So let's do one more easy example of negation, and then we're done. Okay, so if I wanted to say, I don't know, let's look at some more of these irregular ones. Okay. He could not go out yesterday. So we're looking at the verb pouvoir then, which is to be able to. So he could not go out. Well, if we were saying he could go out, then that would be il a pu sortir. He was able to go out. Okay, but now we want to negate it. So where does the ne and the pas go? Around the a. So that makes this sentence il n'a pas pu sortir. He was not able to go out. Alright, and think we're done.